Hi and welcome to today's video. Today I'll be showing you how to repair my Silverline workbench, which I've had for a number of years, and recently one of the pieces of wood on one of the arms snapped. It was been around for years, I've used it quite heavily, so it was probably not going to last forever the way I was using it because I used it to renovate my house. I decided to keep it lying around as it's still quite useful to have as a bit of a spare and a backup, or if I'm cutting very long lengths of wood. I used a small offcut of a bit of MDF that I'll be using in a future video to make. I use these tools. This is what it looked like before, and this is what it looked like after. If you like this video, please hit the like button, please subscribe, please add any comments below that you have.
First thing to do is remove the broken piece. Make sure you keep all the screws safe. I nearly lost one down the hole in the decking, so be careful with them as they come out quite quickly. Next up, use the old piece as a template to draw around on the wood that you're going to be using to replace it. You can measure it out exactly, but I was quite happy that a rough template would be good enough for this job. Now, using a track saw or a plunge saw, cut the piece that you've drawn around us with the template. I am pretty new to this track saw, then, as you may be able to tell, because it didn't work exactly right first time, I had to recut the starter piece. Also, I'd recommend that you wear a mask, as MDF does kick out a lot of dust, and I should have been wearing a mask, but it was only a small piece. Equally, for such a small task, a circular saw would have been just as good, but plunge saws are very good for bigger jobs. As you'll see now, I used a circular saw just to cut off the end piece that would overhang. One thing I did forget to mention for the plunge saw, but also relevant to the circular saw, as you'll see me do here, is adjust the depth just so it's ever so slightly bigger than the piece of wood you're cutting through. Then all I did was held it up against the other piece just to check that they were exactly the same size, and luckily they were. Next up, I needed to attach the wood to the metal runners, so I pulled the runners in as close as possible, flipped the bench over, placed the piece of wood underneath the runners, and marked out with a pencil the little holes where the screws would be going. Using a 3mm drill bit, I just started off the holes on the piece of wood so the screws would go in. Just make sure that you're using a drill bit that's smaller than the screws you're going to be using. Then just use the old screws to attach the new board to the runners. Be careful not to over tighten the screws, but it should be okay. Then I just tested out the runners, added a bit of WD-40 as they hadn't been used for a while and a bit stiff. Using the old broken pieces, I aligned them and marked the centre of each of the holes, so I could then cut a hole for each of the circles. I got these self-cut speed wood drill bits from Toolstation. They are so good compared to other drill bits I've had. To test if I got the holes the right size, what I did was I held one drill bit into the hole to see whether it would pass through or not. First bit I used was a 20mm. It was slightly too big, as you'll see, it didn't go through. And then second test I used a 19mm, which was perfect. Then I used the markings I'd already made and drilled a hole in every point. I wasn't overly bothered about the accuracy of where these holes were, but I tried to get them as closely aligned as the others as I could. Quick blast with relief blower to get rid of a lot of the dust and debris. Then I gave it a coat with this Ronseal decking protector. Now you could use MDF primer or any other sort of wood coating, but I chose this as I had it lying around in the shed and it's only me that's going to see this. This was just to ensure that any moisture and any wetness on it wouldn't be soaked in. It's going to be living in the shed anyway, so it would be fairly protected from the elements in there. And there we are, that was a very quick step-by-step run through of how I repaired my workbench. Here's a picture of all the tools that were used and before and after pictures. Feel free to like, subscribe and comment if you enjoyed this video, as I've got a few more on the way. Thanks very much.